World War II, 1943. The legendary B-17 pilot who defied a death sentence. I bet you've seen those cinematic shots of massive fleets of heavy B-17 flying fortresses filling the cold blue skies over Nazi-occupied Europe. But while historians often marvel at the scale of the Allied strategic bombing offensive, there was a brutal, terrifying reality hidden inside those metal cockpits. At 25,000 feet, the air was negative 50 degrees, oxygen was thin, and the chance of survival was close to zero. In 1943, flying in a bomber wasn't just a military deployment, it was a statistical death sentence. Before the war, Rosie Rosenthal was a peaceful, successful corporate lawyer in Manhattan. But when the shadow of the Third Reich fell over the world, he didn't hide behind his law degree. He volunteered for the United States Army Air Forces, eventually becoming a pilot in the 100th Bombardment Group. This unit would soon gain a reputation so terrifying and a casualty rate so massive that history would remember them by a darker name, the Bloody Hundredth. On October 10, 1943, the Bloody Hundredth was ordered to launch a high-stakes raid over the heavily fortified German city of Münster. 13 B-17 bombers from their base took off into the morning mist, flying straight into a wall of over 200 aggressive Luftwaffe fighters. The sky turned into a literal slaughterhouse. One by one, American bombers were ripped apart, engulfed in flames, and plummeted toward the earth below. Imagine standing on the empty runway back in England, watching the sky for your friends to return, only to realize that out of 13 massive aircraft, 12 have been completely vaporized or captured. Only one lone, battered plane emerged from the smoke. It belonged to Robert Rosenthal. But wait, because the most inspiring part of this survival story hasn't even appeared yet. Guard this detail for later. Despite facing the absolute peak of wartime trauma, Rosie refused to go home. He was just getting started. Visualizing the sheer terror inside Rosie's plane, named Rosie's Riveters, is almost impossible. During the attack over Münster, his aircraft was hit repeatedly. A shell exploded in the radio room, a rocket ripped through the right wing, and 2 of his 4 engines died. Most of his crew members were severely wounded or unconscious due to a loss of oxygen. With his oxygen system failing, Rosenthal had to manually fly a dying, heavy bomber through a swarm of enemies while bleeding from his arm. When his B-17 finally limped back into the Thorpe Abbotts airfield, the ground crews were completely speechless. The plane was so badly mangled with hundreds of bullet holes that it looked like a flying piece of Swiss cheese. Rosie didn't celebrate his survival. He immediately went to the hospital to check on his crew and then straight to the intelligence office to report what happened to his fallen brothers. The statistics said he should be dead, but his spirit remained completely unbroken. Under military rules, after surviving such a traumatic ordeal, Rosenthal had earned the right to be reassigned to a safe desk job in the United States. Instead, he did something that shocked his superiors. He demanded to stay. As wave after wave of nervous, young, teenage replacements arrived at the base, terrified of the massive casualty rates, Rosie stepped up to lead them. He knew that his experience was the only thing that could keep these new boys alive in the hostile skies. Rosie's legendary status grew with every mission, but his luck would be tested to the absolute limit. In September of 1944, his plane was shot down over Nazi-occupied France. He suffered a broken arm and a broken nose, but managed to evade capture with the help of the French resistance, returning to England to fly again. Then, in February of 1945, during a massive raid directly over Berlin, his engine was set on fire by anti-aircraft flak. Stranded miles deep inside Germany, Rosie stayed at the controls until the very last second so his crew could safely parachute out. When he finally jumped, his parachute opened just feet above the ground. He landed in a freezing, snow-covered field with a fractured arm. He was surrounded by soldiers, but they weren't Germans. He had landed right in front of the advancing Soviet Red Army. Recognizing him as an ally, the Russian soldiers carried him on their shoulders, celebrating his survival. By the time World War II ended in an Allied victory, Rosie Rosenthal had flown a staggering 52 combat missions, more than double what was required. But his war against the Third Reich wasn't over. In 1946, he returned to his original profession as a lawyer, but not to corporate law. He volunteered to serve as an assistant prosecutor during the historic Nuremberg Trials, using his legal mind to bring the highest-ranking Nazi war criminals to justice. Rosie Rosenthal proved that true heroism isn't just about surviving danger, but about repeatedly choosing to face it for a higher purpose. He became one of the most decorated pilots in the history of the 8th Air Force, earning the Distinguished Service Cross, the Silver Star, and the British Distinguished Flying Cross. He spent the rest of his long life ensuring that the young men of the Bloody Hundredth who never came home were always remembered with absolute honor. The heroes of the greatest generation defied the odds to protect our freedom, whether on the ground, at sea, or 5 miles up in the freezing air. If you believe that the legendary bravery of Robert Rosie Rosenthal deserves to be remembered by the world, hit the subscribe button, leave a comment to thank a veteran, and join us on our next journey through history. Thank you for watching the Greatest Generation Tales.